Joining us is a lady who is no stranger to the Observer. When we call on her, she's always there to enlighten us to what's going on in government, and especially local government. It's St. Augustine MP and UNC Shadow Minister of Local Government, Ms. Khadija Ameen. Pleasant good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, Mikee K, and of course to all your listeners who are locked on, and a special good evening to all local government representatives who may be listening.
Yes, indeed. The local government minister made it quite clear. He said that the Grandy Corporation wants money for luxury vehicle, not rent. He pointed fingers at the corporation yesterday in the Senate when he was asked by opposition Senator Damon Lyder about provisions that have been made to ensure that the councillors continue to serve the public. What are we witnessing here? Because councillors say, listen, I don't know what's going on with my rent. I locked out. Please enlighten us.
Well, Faris Alis should be the last one to talk about luxury vehicles, because I don't think he has properly answered the situation where a vehicle that he bought, that he was exempted taxes for, and he sold to a certain other attorney. I don't think he has answered those questions in the public domain. But be that as it may, the situation is that every year in the budget, each corporation receives an allocation for rent for their councillor's office. The councillor's office, there's a fixed amount that you pay, they're allowed to pay for rent, and you get an allocation that will last you for the year. The corporation would pay money out of this allocation based on the monies released. So on paper, they tell you you have $12,000 for the year, and at a certain time they might release 2,000, they might release 5,000, but you send requests for releases. It is only when you exhaust that vote, that 12,000, you use up the full 12,000, that you can via or transfer money from another vote to that vote. As it is, the corporation has not received the full allocation for office rent. They have not utilized the full allocation, so they cannot transfer money from somewhere else to use for rent. To do so would be improper. You cannot go to council and just transfer money like that. When you receive money for one purpose, you have to have good justification of why you didn't use it for that purpose and why you use it for something else. And very often, in the next budget, the next financial cycle, whatever you took money from, you are indicating that I didn't need that much money. So in the next cycle, it is very likely that wherever you took money or via money from, you will get less in that allocation. Faris Alis is playing politics. You are talking about a simple procedure that is administrative, where the regional corporation would send their request for funds to the Ministry of Local Government, who in turn would send it to the Ministry of Finance to release the funds according to the monies that they were allocated in the budget. And that is not being done. To the extent where for 6 months, the rent for these councillors have not been paid. I mean, it is unreasonable to expect that after 6 months of non-payment of rent that a landlord would want to keep you. And for many cases, this is a form of income for them. You had one elderly gentleman who said, listen, I need to buy my medication and thing, and this is my form of income. I don't know if Faris Alis is having that problem with his rent, his millions of dollars rent that he is collecting for his building that he's renting to the state. But I can tell you this $2,500 a month is a meager amount for a rental of a councillor's office. And a councillor's office is a critical part of representation and democracy and bringing governance closer to people. And this is why I say to Faris Alis, forget the petty politics and do your job. If you simply do your job, the regional corporations will not be in this embarrassing situation. Sometimes they also have problems to get, there's a $1,000 allocation for little stationery and so on in the offices. A lot of times the councillors' offices do not even get that little stipend.
All right.
Because the ministry is not releasing the money to the regional corporation.
So there is something for miscellaneous expenditures that they can reach out and get?
There's an allocation for rent.
Okay.
And and they calculate there are X number of councillors in this corporation, $2,500 rent per month, 12 months of the year, and they allocate that to each corporation based on the number of councillors, offices they expect to be paying rent for. And that is given on paper. You know that that is the amount you can. So at every so often, every month, every 2 months, the CEO would send a request for funds, and the minister would send that to the Minister of Local Government would send that to the Minister of Finance, and the money, the cash money now will be released into the account of
are you saying that the local government minister is being a bit disingenuous with the fact that he's saying that the corporation is well stocked with money? This is his words. It is well stocked with money, and management is critical. He said, unfortunately, management is the answer. But are any of those councillors financial officers of the corporation?
Listen, the corporation would have allocation money released for other things. So even if you have to, say for instance, build a box drain, you cannot enter a contract until you get confirmation of the funds. Confirmation for them to say, yes, I am going to release these funds.
That makes sense. That makes sense,
So even in all the expenses, the monies that has already been released to the regional corporation would have been allocated for different things. You cannot, after writing and getting approval for money, for instance, to pay a contractor to build a box drain to alleviate flooding, decide you're not going to use it for that again, you're going to pay the rent with it. Then what happens to your legal arrangement with your contractor? What happens with your legal obligation to pay workers? What happens with your legal obligation to pay a contract for maintenance of vehicles? These are specific things that the funds were approved for when you made a request for funds. It is under a certain vote. You are restricted in terms of what you can use it there for. You cannot pick up money from water trucking to go and pave roads because it is under a certain vote. And it is only when your vote to pave roads, for example, is completely expended that you can via money that you can say, listen, this is less of a priority. Let me via or transfer this money here. And that is not the case with the rental of offices. They have not utilized the entire amount allocated to them, and it is only when that happens that they can do a viament. But I think Faris is just plain pussyfooting with the people money. It is a simple thing because you are talking about $2,500 in rent. First of all, that really is not sufficient given the state of the economy right now. But councillors are managing, is a little one room these councillors is be renting for their office. And I find it is so embarrassing and distasteful for a man like Faris Alis, who is known to be receiving millions from rent from the state, to be hassling these corporations and have them begging up and down for 6 months, 6 months, no releases for funds.
And that's the part that, I know your time is limited, but that's the part that really raises an alarm here for Mr. Awari to say that within that period of time, 6 months, that not a single request or urgency flag was put up in respect of the matter. And one can well imagine that when you're sitting on almost $1 million of unspent money. So he's saying basically, you didn't ask for it, you haven't said anything, I've received no request. Besides that, you're sitting on a large amount of money.
Listen, that is either a lie or Faris Alis is not aware of what is happening in his ministry. We have letters, we have emails, we have WhatsApp messages, we have records of phone calls, conversations with him, his 2 advisors, the permanent secretary, where communication would have gone concerning the situation with release of funds in general, but also concerning offices. Now, remember, there would be other communication for requests for funds to be released for other things as well. And that is also including, and Sandy Grande is not the only corporation that has been waiting for release of funding, where they sent the request to the Ministry of Local Government, and it has not come forward yet. I mentioned last night at the Monday night meeting in Williamsville that many regional corporations have not received a cent for their development program, which is construction work for and box drains, drainage and irrigation, bridges, and paving of roads. They have not received those monies. So you know what happened? The whole dry season gone, and no construction could start. And you have the rainy season coming now, then that is when you're going to start to issue contracts. You know the problems involved with that. But the reason they could not go into any contracts is because they have made requests for funds. They are waiting the letter telling them we are confirming the release of funds to you. And that is the only authority under which a regional corporation can go into a financial arrangement, a contract, or to agree to pay any services, whether it is water trucking, a contract to pave roads, or to pay the rent. So that is also an area where I can point out that the minister is delinquent because he has not made these releases to the corporations.
Yeah, and Mr. Ameen, with all due respect, people who are viewing this tonight and looking on are still saying, but we heard about local government reform. It was sold to us before the local government elections. Now we're hearing about the fact that, you know, you have a minister saying, I don't know anything, nobody sent a request, we don't know what's going on. But we were told that things were going to change, where in fact these things will be governed a lot more when it comes to dealing, to delivering to the people from the corporation level to those who need it. Now we're seeing different.
But of course, last week in the Senate, last week Tuesday, when Damian Lyda asked, I think was Paul Richards asked a question concerning local government reform. The minister said within the next 12 months you will see a rollout. He said the same thing in 2022, I think it was, or 23, when the government attempted to postpone the local government elections. Yeah. Remember? They declared only that section that extended the term of a councillor from 3 years to 4 years in the attempt to postpone the local government election because they know they was going to get leaks. And at that time, he said that they are going to do a schedule and they're going to roll out. Listen, man, every time you talk about roll out, and you're enrolling and going up place. We have had this promise of local government reform since 2015 when the PNM came into government. There's always some delay. And the only time they talk about local government is when there is an election. So they started off hot and sweaty in the lead up to the last election. They made 2 boroughs, 2 regional corporations. They call them boroughs, just a name change. Those corporations have not seen any change in their status. And that was their big accomplishment for local government elections. You have them talking about reform, and the truth is, there are some areas in that local government legislation that they can declare, they can have proclaimed by the president into law, and begin the reform with some minor, very minor things, and then continue the process. But they have not done that. And as I said, the local government elections has come and gone. And Faris is still saying, he's still on repeat, saying, next 12 months you will see a rollout. We are assessing. Analysis paralysis. That is a term I often hear him using over and over, analysis paralysis. And you are there analyzing and assessing and doing nothing. In the meanwhile, we cannot get our roads paved, potholes bigger than me. You have a man could fall down in a pothole and get lost. You have so many situations where local government really can play a role. And I tell you, St. Augustine constituency falls in a PNM-led corporation, Tunapuna Piako. And they don't have it any better, you know. They are in similar situation to other corporations. They have workers, they have no material to do the work. So it is not only UNC corporations that are feeling the brunt of it. It is all corporations that is suffering from the non-performance of Faris Alwari.
Yeah. Any closing comments? Go right ahead. It just doesn't
I also want to take this opportunity to remind the Minister of Local Government that it is not UNC corporations alone who are being affected by this, or UNC councillors. So if you want to play politics, it is about people, it is about all regional corporations and all local government representatives. If this matter does not come to an end soon, it makes it appear as though the minister is really being political in terms of victimizing Sandy Grande Regional Corporation. And I don't want to believe that that is the case. And I think it is a matter that he can very quickly clear up between himself and the Minister of Finance, because communication has also gone to the Minister of Finance when the Ministry of Local Government communicated that they are waiting on Ministry of Finance to make the releases. So Minister Imbert is now aware of Faris Alwari's non-performance. And I am saying that this is a very simple administrative matter that they could get to the bottom of and clarify and smoothen out and move forward. And we are waiting for the local government reform, because you have been preaching that for 9 years.
Yeah, I think we all have been waiting for it. I mean, we seem to be getting taxes before we get reform, but we want to focus on the reform because that is what was sold to us. Now when you see councillors standing outside of a locked office where they've been evicted, you ask yourself, well, where's this reform? And a minister saying that he knows nothing about it. So again, who's really watching what's going on? I mean, yeah. I want to...
Faris Alwari, he may not be aware of what the administrative procedure or the financial regulations are, but in his haste to be political in his reply to the question in the Senate, he really is advising corporations to misappropriate funds, and that is a serious...
Yeah, but how can he not be aware? He is the line minister. That's the line minister.
Yeah, well, that doesn't mean that he is aware or he's knowledgeable, you know.
Yeah, because we really and truly can't be hearing about this rollout and rollout. I mean, people really and truly believe that something different was going to take place with garbage collection, with having to deal with neighbors who show you no respect, they break the law, whatever the case may be. We have seen none of that. And all we see now is councillors who are the first line of government service being locked out or evicted from their office. So it can't be that Mr. Alwari is in the dark, because the buck stops with him.
Well, I really also think that this is part of the government's ploy to prove to citizens how much we need property tax, because they keep singing the song that property tax will go towards local government services, and they keep singing that song to justify. And over the years, what they have been doing is giving the regional corporations less and less money in the budget. And even when they do give them a certain allocation, what they do is they do not release that money to them. So it's what I call suppression of funds, where they, at the end of the financial year, they never get what they were promised in the budget. And even what is budgeted for is not sufficient to do their jobs. So they are really barely holding together, these regional corporations. Many of them are relying on partnerships with sponsors and companies and NGOs and so on to do their job. And in many cases, you are seeing the cracks. You are seeing local government crumbling. And I wonder if this is just a wicked ploy by the government to prove to us that we have to get property tax in Ruiz.
I wouldn't be surprised. I want to thank you so much again for taking time out. Again, keep up the good work. Best of luck to you and your entire team. And we'll be speaking shortly again.
Thanks, Mikee K. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.